Guys,
Okay.
what's up? Tina, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Marco.
Thanks for
I'm
being
really
here.
happy to be.
For those
Yes.
of you who don't know, Tina has done a podcast or an episode with us before, and I wanted to have her back on because I think she's super woman, super mom, super carnivore, super everything. Tell us a little bit about yourself and for the 4,000 new members since you were last on. Who are you?
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah, I'm a mom. I have two boys, 11 and 13, and I live full time on the road in the U.S. and we mostly travel the Southwest and Northwest. We don't spend a lot of time on the East Coast. So we're a full time nomadic family. We've been doing that for about 4 years. I like to think I've been an athlete since I was 10. Whatever that means, competitive, non-competitive, all different levels. And always just a fan of my good health and wanting to have a greater understanding of the generator of good health and the generators of bad health. And so it's just been something that I've been interested in the entirety of my life, really, and had peaks and valleys and some big traumas and dramas, and through those sort of learned what really works through experience and using myself as my own little guinea pig of what works best. And anyhow, traveling with my kids, I do a lot of running races, ultra marathons. Used to do a lot of sort of road races, marathons. Got into trail running and ultras, and I also just do a lot of little adventures on my own, which I started long before COVID, but has served me well since COVID. This last we spoke, I was in Sedona, and I had run my first official ultra, as in a race format, but I had run that distance before on my own. And I don't think I knew at the time that I actually took first place in that race. I found out later there was an article written by 90 minutes, fasted and no carbs, 27 hours fasted and zero carbs in that run. And it was a spectacular day, 100 degrees. And as we progress in this conversation, I'll tell you about my last 50K where I used carbohydrates and what happened. That's a fun story, or not so fun. But in between then, I went to Arizona and Idaho. And in Arizona, I ran the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim, which is 48.9 miles. Also, very low, limited carbs. And I did that on the full harvest moon, which was really kind of cool at midnight. So
Wow.
just some of the fun stuff we do. Many of the races I wanted to do after I spoke to you, I had a list of them, were all canceled, due to the state of current affairs. So
Yeah.
I've just been out on my own, which is okay. I like that as well.
For people who are listening who aren't very informed, and I always say there are two types of quote unquote sick people who come to us for help. The first one is just simply uninformed, right? They just don't know what they don't know. And the second type know what they need to be doing, but they don't do it anyway, right? And for the people who belong to the first category and who are uninformed, to hear you say, I ran this race and beat everybody else by 90 minutes and I did it fasted and I eat zero carbs and I wear a low carb beanie. I mean, you should be dead by now, according to what Nestle and Kellogg's have been telling us.
Of course. Right.
You should be
How did I
withering away
survive?
somewhere.
Oh, and most certainly, I'm just going to piggyback this because I listened to Sean's interview and I loved it. I most certainly should be dead with the loads of red meat that I eat, because it is my favorite, the fattiest red meat I can find as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm definitely dead. But not true. I mean, and I think that's what is exciting when we start looking to our own intuition and to others who have the wisdom to share, and then trying it, and really your experience. That's what I've learned as I age and go through this life, is my experience, and how I feel is what matters, not what a study says, or not what the U.S. or the FDA, or the American Medical Association, or whomever it is. They've told us a lot of stuff, and I think we've sort of proven that those things have failed.
Yep. One of the things Sean said was that we already eat a 75% plant-based diet and we are sicker than ever before. And again, guys, like this comes from personal experience. I actually had a phone call with somebody who put in an application and they switched over to a vegan diet 2 years ago, and they're still suffering. And I said, hey, I can help you, but are you willing to try something different? Because clearly this isn't working. And they were like, well, what do you mean? Do I have to eat meat every day? And do I have to? And I'm trying to say, like, I would not be doing this. I recommend this to the people who I love the most. I have a mum who survived cancer. I have a little sister. I have a partner. I have everybody around me. I recommend, I would not be doing them a disservice. The people I love, I eat that way myself to take care of myself. So yes, like I will do the same for you. I'm not going to lead you down a path that I don't believe in. And the reason why I'm doing the 90-day carnivore is one, like I want to do it. I want to see what it feels like, and I feel great already. And I want to be the person kind of on the front line so that for the people who are thinking, hey, it doesn't work, or I should be eating plants, or somebody commented on my video yesterday said your poor digestion and heart. I'm like, mate, my heart works
Mm,
perfectly fine. My digestion hasn't felt this good in a long, long time. Um, yeah, guys, we don't do this because it's fun. Like I love berries, I love dark chocolate. There are many things that I'm gonna miss. Like I was eating dinner last night at my girlfriend's house, and her parents had roasted pumpkin and potato, and I mean, wow,
mm.
it tastes so good. But I didn't have any because I know that I will suffer for it, or I feel better this way. So it's not fun. We're really doing it because everybody who I've spoken to who does carnivore or keto or these type of diets, they would never go back. They
Right.
they sound fanatical about it because they feel so good.
That's the fact. Feeling good is fun.
Yeah.
It's way more fun than eating at the Indian buffet, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And one thing I often tell myself is I've had that. I've had potato chips. I've had plenty of potato chips in my life. I don't need to try another potato chip. I know exactly what they taste like. And I
Yeah.
think after you feel so good for so long, and then not only feel good, but generally look good comes with that, and then you feel even better. And perform well comes with feeling good. Like all of these things just layer on top of each other. And so, like, why would you want to stop? You know, why would you want to slow down any of that feeling good momentum? And I'm no, I'm not. I again really enjoyed Sean saying how like he had a piece of his son's birthday cake, or whatever, something like that, right? In the interview, I have my moments. I've had last year in January, in fact, was when I really decided to make the clean switch to carnivore. Right, it was carnivore month, and I was already low carb for 20 years. You know, I'd already been out of grains and carbs and sugar and all of that. And I had gone very keto, which I enjoyed and had good benefits from. But I thought I'm really going to kind of go super clean here and do carnivore. And I couldn't believe the difference from keto to carnivore, because I think there's a misconception that it's very similar. And in my opinion, keto's gotten really dirty. You know, lots of almond flour and almond milks and nut milks and seeds, all of these things that the oxalates would not be things that you would want to be ingesting. And then I have always had a thing with turning foods into other foods, and that's a big thing in keto desserts, keto noodles, keto whatever. Like, there's something to be said for just eating food in its wholeness. I mean, sure, cut it into a fillet or a ribeye or whatever, but we don't need to make something into something else. And when I got all of that out, I just felt so good. And I've had moments throughout the year where I've had blueberries, or I had a couple of pieces of watermelon. Usually that would be, I don't even want to call it a cheat, but if I feel like that is something I need, I would have it. And generally few side effects because I'm so clean most of the time. But when it comes to vegetables, I would say the suffering is so great that I just don't like to go back. It's not worth it in any way. And that also speaks to me, very loudly. And it took a long time because I was always eating so many vegetables with my meat. I did not want to believe that these wonderful vegetables that we've been taught are so good for us could be hurting me, in such a way. But the longer they were gone, the more easy it was to pinpoint, oh, this is my problem, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah. They are actually, in my opinion, toxic for most human consumption. Some of us, I'm sure, can tolerate them better than others, but I don't know that that's kind of a funny word, tolerate, right? I don't know if we are supposed to tolerate food,
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
right?
listen, guys, like it's, I started my journey with cutting out grains. I read The Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf, cut out gluten, then cut out dairy, then cut out cruciferous vegetables, and it slowly just kept kind of going. And I'll be honest, 2 years ago, I was still suffering. I still had IBS. I still had loose bowel motions. I still had cramping and pain in my stomach. And I was eating about as clean paleo as you could get. And going more meat based and cutting those vegetables out, I don't even feel my digestion, which is actually what it's supposed to be like. Now,
Right.
here's how I explain it to people. Maybe you can add to this, but vegetables can't run away from you. And they are also in the business of survival. They don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
overeaten. As a species, they want to survive. And so they will produce goitrogens, oxalates, poisons so that you don't overeat them. They are not inherently healthy. We've already tried that. We are doing that as a society. It's not working. All right. So that's how I try to
Right.
explain it to our patients. It's like, hey, I know you have this dogma that they are so healthy for you, but they're not. We've got to actually reduce them, and we might need to cut them out completely for a little while. And I know that sounds wild to you, but just trust me on this. Right. So, how do you explain to people what vegetables do and why they produce these oxalates? And I know one of the topics you wanted to cover was oxalates. What do we say in the chat here?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, and we've mentioned it. I was doing a little extra research right before we got on here, so that I could articulate myself well. Um, they're great. I mean, they're not great. They're horrible. But so spinach, I think we have a culture obsessed with spinach. Spinach is so good for you, this leafy green, right? I would encourage anyone who believes that or can't get out of that mindset to eat a whole bunch of raw spinach and then to run their tongue across their teeth. And you will feel, everybody has that weird mouth feel with spinach, and that's because that spinach is so high in oxalates, which are tiny little crystals made to keep herbivores away, right? It's their defense mechanism. And also oxalate is it oxalic acid. I mean, it's a toxic cleaning a detergent that is highly poisonous, and it comes from oxalates, right? So oxalates and spinach, really high in all of your leafy greens, and minute nuts, seeds, and oils, are bind to your kidneys, bind to your joints, um, other organs as well, but they're known as the nephrotoxins, right? So they're going to attack your kidneys first. And I wonder, and this is just me throwing that out there to the world and to you, if you would agree with me here, all of the years of people saying that meat was so hard on your kidneys, right? Meat is that you always hear that, the protein in the meat. What if it's the oxalates? That we have a diet filled with seed oils and vegetables and all of these things that are super high in oxalates. Just another way that the meat sort of got the bad name because it was in the diet. But I would question that, because oxalic acid is a nephrotoxin.
Yeah.
So I just found that very interesting. And being someone who just years ago, even while keto and low carb, I would juice spinach, kale. There was no sugar, leafy greens, all of them every morning, empty stomach, just downing glassfuls, thinking I was doing the greatest thing on earth, and was feeling worse and worse and worse and worse, and actually had extreme kidney pain, and when I finally sort of did the research and put it all together, I had so many aha moments around the oxalates. But makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. They're keeping predators away. People can even have oxalates show up on their skin. You can be so toxic with them. And I think it's something that's not really addressed or talked about, unfortunately. And they keep telling us to shove spinach down our throats.
Yeah. I actually, speaking of that, I had a patient. We did a group call with our patients this morning in the patient group, and one of them asked, um, she has kidney disease and said, "Hey,
Oh,
I've been told to eat a low protein diet. How do I
of
balance what
course.
you're telling me versus what my specialist is telling me?" And obviously, there's a whole heap of fear associated with that because she has kidney disease, right? So, and this is somebody who's great mindset, really exercises every day, sometimes twice a day. What would you tell them?
Oh, so hard.
Mm.
Well, let me piggyback on this. My father has one kidney. He's a product of the Western healthcare, you know. And so I have this conversation because he's been told the same thing, to be on a low sodium, low protein, all of these things that are anti-intuitive to me. And I don't know. I actually don't know that there's anything you can tell someone other than to do it yourself and inspire them by your good health and encourage them to, okay, you've done everything here, A, B, C, and D. It hasn't worked. Now try a new way, right?
Mm.
That's the only thing I can ever tell anyone. If this hasn't worked for you, you've done it all. I'm not even going to tell you that it's wrong, but it hasn't worked for you. So now are you willing to try something else? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I can say in my father's case, no matter what I do, the doctors are always right.
Yep.
So,
Well, I mean, in our
yeah,
society, the doctors, in our culture, in our society, doctors have this godlike thing, right? Whatever the doctor says, I do.
right.
And the doctors are just human, guys. And I went to university and I studied with a lot of them who will be future doctors. And I can speak from experience without sounding arrogant. I was much healthier than them and much more concerned about my health and much more aware. I wasn't turning up to chemistry labs drunk and hungover. They were. Right, so
Right.
these are the people who will later become, not all of them of course, but I'm speaking for like the people that I saw who I know that now are doing medicine and becoming doctors. That's what they, somebody's values when you look at their receipts. That's something that I learned recently. If you want to know somebody's
Very
values,
nice.
look at their receipts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are a product of what we consume and we have so much power. There's so much power in that. So I say the same thing. And I can say I probably stopped seeing conventional doctors 13 years ago. It was when my son, when I had my children. There was a couple times in between for some things I had some testing done. Um, but outside of that, I've managed without them. Sorry, the wind is getting very hefty here.
That's okay.
Um, no, um, oh yeah, what I was going to say was in the time when I did see conventional doctors and when I was married, my ex-husband struggled with his health and he was always seeing regular doctors, and I can say never once was one that I saw in physically good shape. Looking at them, they actually looked to be in physically very poor health, worse health than he was, and certainly worse health than I was. And I always did wonder, I thought it was peculiar that we looked to these folks for health, who many of them, and I know not all of them, some of them are in shape, but many of them have a rotund belly and very thin limbs and or are fat skinny. And I wonder why it is we look to them for our health advice, right? It's kind of interesting. So there, that being said, I appreciate again very much you having Sean Baker on. I look at the doctors that I look to, Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Paul Saladino. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys have abs and lats, and not that all of that matters, but
Something to be
there's
said.
something to be said for
Yeah.
that the evidence is there, and then that's how I feel about myself. I find often I get into these conversations with people who are pro plants. I'm like, well, I have a six pack, but I don't know, I think I'm going to keep eating meat.
Oh,
About what, and not that a six pack or not matters, none of, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't know that I need your health advice. The last I had my triglycerides tested, they were 26, and
mm,
I've been known to eat 6 eggs at a time and 2 steaks. But
yeah.
keep telling me about the plants that I should be eating, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk. So I have that exact conversation with the plant eaters, but also with the count your calories people. You know those people,
Right? You know, it's
right?
the same.
and
Absolutely.
and I have
Yep.
people switch over and come work with me, and I'm like, hey, throw your app, don't worry about my fitness pal, throw your scale away, let's start from the
Oh,
beginning. And I have these but doesn't a calorie matter? I'm like, it does matter, but I am stronger, faster, leaner, healthier. I have been an athlete my entire life, and I don't remember, I mean, maybe I counted calories when I was like 18, but geez, you're a walking calculator and you're telling these people that that's what they should be doing. How can you do not put a fucking donut in your on your scale and claim to it blows my mind.
right.
So the results speak for themselves. Like, it is not
Yes.
just about looking good, it is not just about being lean, but
No,
it does help. And do you want to
it
spend the
does.
rest of your life plugging numbers into an app, or do you want to enjoy food and enjoy life for what it is?
Oh, thank you. Exactly. And that's another point I'd like to piggyback on with Sean. It's like I absolutely love to cook and I love the food I eat. I never go away from a meal feeling hungry, or I mean, not only not hungry, I feel satiated like to its fullest. I couldn't even imagine eating a piece of pie. I have no sugar cravings at this point in my life, but I mean that just the thought of it would seem absurd,
Mm,
and pointless. And so it's not, I think that's something too people have to get over is you're not missing out on anything. You're really filled up. I also like the point, I felt this 20 years ago when I went, I'm going to throw out Adkins because I actually love that guy, and he really got such a bad rap, and he was such a trailblazer in all of this when you really get into the depth of his research and what he was doing and the risks he was willing to take at the time for his reputation. And he really got beat up. But when I first did that, that's what set me on low carb. It's same thing. You could get off like keto where you're doing a lot of these little extra things, but I really followed his induction, which I would say is carnivore. It was just
mm.
meat and eggs, and I would have cheese. I would have dairy, and that was all I would eat. And I instantly felt my best. My entire mindset changed. I didn't even know I had brain fog, but I did. It was incredible, the change I felt with that. And my point in that was the cleanliness of it. And it occurred to me then 20 years ago that we have way too many choices. And Sean said that, like, never before. And we think that's normal. I mean, we have more choices now than we did 50 years ago. And we have far more choices than we did 100 years ago. But if we go back, I don't even know, 100 or 200 years, people just didn't have choices. It was what they had was what they had. And so it's only in this tiny little speck of time, right? Humans have been around for like 12,000 years or something, basically eating the same thing, which was animal products
Mm.
with very little anything else involved in that. And even the grains, I think, even the grains 200 years ago was much harder. You weren't going to the grocery store and buying boxes of cereal and buying, having 27 choices of bread. And I do think we're so caught up in that, and of the low carb or the keto this or the bar or the this. There just shouldn't be that many choices. And I remember when that hit me 20 years ago, like, simple really is best, and there's nothing complex about it. I think people get over complicated. Well, how do I do it so hard? It's the easiest thing you'll ever do. Your grocery bill will go, like, you'll spend 1/3 and you can buy the greatest meat, buy the grass-fed best meat you can possibly find, because you're not buying anything else.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I think the whole concept of it's expensive to buy all of this meat or any of that is just foolish. Your cart is empty. You have eggs, you have meat, your
Yeah.
salt.
And you'll feel a lot
Yeah.
more satiated. Um,
Yeah.
here are the things that you will need. You will need a slow cooker, maybe an air fryer if you want to
Yes.
get fancy, and a hot plate and cast iron pan,
Yep.
and
And
uh,
I have
and
found,
and beef tallow, which will cost you $3 for like
oh,
half a
yeah,
pound, or a
yeah.
pound.
It's so delicious. I mean, I'm fasting right now. I'm going to break my fast after this. Just talking about it, I'm so excited. And that's the other thing. I think we talked a little bit about fasting before. I think it goes hand in hand. You naturally become a faster because you're so satiated. which
Yeah.
I also think is natural to humans to fast. You know, it's not natural to be shoving. We were all taught these 6 meals a day. You know, I was a personal trainer, all the garbage that we spewed, you know, eat all of these meals, all of these calories 6 times a day and blah, blah, blah. I think it's so anti-human, really.
Yeah.
It's so very natural to fast. It's so very easy to fast when you are fueled properly.
For sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
12:30 p.m. here, and my last meal was dinner last night, which was around 6 o'clock, and I don't feel hungry at all.
Uh, right. So I'm 5:30 here. My last meal was 7 o'clock last night, and I am only hungry now because we talked about meat, and it
Yeah.
sounds good. But just now at 5:30.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to make a point for everybody that's watching. This will probably go up on the podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube or in the group, I just want you to have a look at where Tina is and how cold it is, and that she's able. So, one of the things that I speak about all of the time is resilience. Like, my goal is not to make you into a Zen baby that's meditating all the time and drinking celery juice. Like, I want you to be able to take on life. And what that means is adapting to the environment around you, whether that's more stress, whether that's more cold, like you were sitting in freezing temperatures, and
I'm thinking it's 25 degrees right now.
yeah, and you're able to sit here and speak to us, which thank you, by the way, but you're able to speak here, sit here and speak to us because you are resilient, right?
Yeah.
And to, for those of you who don't know, tell everybody about your kind of, in maybe in 5 minutes, if we can do it, about, you were vegan at one point.
I was. Yes. Yes. So I was, I'm going to guess maybe 19, 18, decided I found yoga. I've taught yoga for 20 years. At that point, I was just a student, right? Got on sort of this Eastern path and read about ahimsa, nonviolence, and, you know, started to think these big thoughts that I hadn't thought about before. And also had all of the modern health knowledge at the time saying that this was a good thing, and decided that I would become vegetarian first, which I did, which was, I thought, was super easy, and I thought it was, you know, this healthiest thing I could possibly do. I also had been a long distance runner growing up, so maybe it was an easy transition because I already ate a really high carb diet, right? And because that's what they push on us. I remember having pasta parties at my house in high school before cross country meets. oh, my poor body. But so it was really easy, you know, and there was, I'm going to also say about being vegetarian, especially at that time, that was in the 90s. It was like, there was a little accolade with that, like, I'm a vegetarian, you know, I'm like a better human or something. At least
Yeah.
that did go through my mind. Maybe everyone else, I can admit that went through my mind. Like I was doing something really hard, but when I look at it, it wasn't hard at all. And I was a pretty healthy vegetarian, but you're shoveling, you know, I was shoveling beans and rice in my face and vegetables. And I wasn't the vegetarian who ate cheese sticks and French fries, but still, it was just all of these grains and carbs that you make you feel momentarily so good, but then afterwards so bad, you know, like in a coma. So I did that, and then I was like, well, I'm going to become vegan. And it was interesting, as I was vegetarian, I was slowly gaining weight and feeling really bad. And I thought, well, I'll be vegan, and definitely that'll fix everything. I'll get all that dairy out. I watched all the documentaries and all the propaganda, and okay, now this is what's really going to fix all of my problems. I'll become vegan. And then, you know, I don't know because I didn't have any testing done at the time, but I think that just destroyed me mentally. You know, I'm sure it was a lack of B vitamins, a lack of everything I need. Me personally, I know I'm super sensitive to carbohydrates in general. I didn't know that at the time. And so just the mental brain fog, the weight gain, I was probably 180 pounds at 5'6", you know, 5'7" ish. I like to say 5'7", 5'6 3/4. And, you know, I was still running, I was still doing yoga, doing all these things. And there was nothing I could do to combat the weight gain, the lethargy, the mental instability of just up and down. And, you know, I would have never used the word depression, but when I look back, you know, feeling sort of depressed and then anxious as well, just all the things. And I was thinking I was doing everything right. And then, thank goodness, for Dr. Adkins. My mom had a copy of his book from like the 1970, I don't know what, on her shelf. And I cracked it open and started reading. And it just sort of blew my mind. And I thought, you know, I it can't be right if I feel this way. No matter, no matter how spiritually or ethically I think this is, nothing should make me feel this bad and look this way when I'm trying so hard. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I did Adkins. I decided to try it. I did the induction really perfectly, and I might be exaggerating at this point, but it seemed like I lost 4 pounds in 14 days. It's just, and within the first few days, mentally, I felt so clear and so clean and so happy that I was like, this is magic pill. And then I just kind of became obsessed with it. I mentioned in our last podcast about my mom, she's classic type 2 diabetes, and she's gone through all of the steps from being pre-diabetic to diabetic, to the pills and insulin, to more insulin. And she's followed all the rules, right? She's followed every rule every doctor ever gave her. She's followed every diet plan, which is in an exact opposition to, say, like Atkins. And I remember begging her, Mom, just try this. You've got to try this. And, the doctors knew best, but I took it and ran with it, and ran with the experience, the feeling. My own experience and feeling was what served me best. And I just knew that was the way to go. Yeah.
Do you know what's really important and why I wanted to bring that up? We have one of our patients, Sanya. She said, I remember the vegan feeling. Oh gosh, so glad I stopped. I felt exactly the same. One of our other patients, Joey, commented, and he's lost 8 pounds in a month, right? And guys, we are not like, I couldn't care less as to what you do with your body. It doesn't matter to me what you guys decide to eat. It doesn't matter what belief system you live by. I don't mind if you choose to eat vegan and never believe a word that we say. We get nothing from this. Tina is not getting paid from this video. I am not getting paid for this video. We are here because we want to share our experience and our truth. And we are also in the process of healing, right? Like you can take whatever you want away from this, but just try it. Understand, we have nothing to gain. I have no supplement to sell you. I have no book to sell you. I have no vegan juice to sell you. I have no vegan protein powder to sell you. None of that. The Game Changers documentary did, but I don't. Tina doesn't. We're just here because we're sharing our experience.
Right. And I'm pretty convicted about this stuff out in the world and in my personal life and with what I do and where I travel. And, when I do races, I run in my Carnivore shirt, or I make shirts that say fat adapted or fueled by bacon or whatever it is, because and it's not yes, I like ruffling feathers, but it's not to be combative. It's exactly that. It's because I want to help people, because it's horrible to think you're doing everything right. And in fact, you're really hurting yourself, and then when you've had this experience of healing, and it really is so easy, you just really want to help other people and say there are other ways, and at least give it a shot and see if it, see if this can work for you. And then I do, like you said, you've been an athlete, I've been an athlete. It's not like, I'm not just sort of showing up at the gym 3 times a week. I'm running the Grand Canyon rim to rim, climbing 11,000 feet of elevation on 0 carbs and feeling awesome. And so I think that, there is a purpose behind that. I want to tell people, not only is this like good for your health, but it's like you can perform at pretty high levels and live a pretty amazing life feeling this way. You're not, in no way am I weak or malnourished or, it's the exact opposite of that. And there is absolutely no need for ingesting carbohydrates at all. Our bodies are amazing, and they know how to convert fat to fuel in this amazing way, which will fuel you far longer than carbohydrates and far more efficiently, right? Yeah. It's really, I want to say magic, but it's not. It's just how cool bodies are. They're designed for this. This is what they're designed for.
Yeah, this is exactly how you're supposed to live. You said here in a message, you said, I want to share with you all about my last 50K miles. It was interesting, brutal, and I did a food experiment. Tell us.
Yes. So I did. So I ate carbs. And I did it on purpose. You know, it was on purpose, just to see and kind of to use as, you know, I have no video of it. I have no evidence. I just have my experience. I have my friends who knew what I was doing. But, you know, to see, well, let's see. I haven't used carbs in a long time for performance, you know, probably since back in high school. So let's see if there's a difference. Now, there could have been probably a far better way to do it where I slowly brought them in, but I just fueled days before, like 2 days before the race, and then during the race, which I've never done. And so I want to let everyone know, I generally do races, runs, all my workouts fasted, and I feel phenomenal fasted. I know I feel my best fasted and my best on fat and protein. So I knew I was taking a risk, and I went into it that way. And brutal is the only thing I can say. So I was an hour and a half slower than my last race.
Wow.
At one point I was on the ground, lying on the rocks, thinking that I needed emergency care, begging for help. Now, lots of people go through this in these races, but I hadn't ever gone through this. I thought I was going to lose my bowels for sure as I was running. It was that the stomach cramps were that bad. And actually, I didn't know if I was going to lose my bowels or throw up or do both at the same time. And at one point I was literally, these are all sort of mountain trail runs, right? Out in the dirt, your way. And they tell you in the beginning of the race, no one's coming to get you. You know, either someone's carrying you out the race or you're crawling out. And I was for damn sure that I was crawling out of that race. And I still had like 18 more miles to go. So generally I'm competitive. That day, no. Again, hour and a half slower. I was the 15th woman overall. So many things went wrong, and it was absolutely from my fuel. It was the fructose in my belly.
What did you
and that's
eat?
what I was doing. I was fueling through the race, just like everybody else does. Oh boy, I ate fruit. They had great aid stations. I mean, you can't imagine what people shove down in these races. And I'll never do it again. But people are doing this regularly, and I'm like blown away by it. But I ate their little chicken sandwiches in a little whole wheat, it was probably a little low carb thing. It was very thin bread. And they had like little fruit snacks. I ate the fruit. I drank the juice. I was doing all of the things that everybody else was doing. And I got very ill. And it was really, I actually had to have somebody give me some salt tabs. And I did finish. I was actually just proud of myself for finishing the race. So it was quite the experience. And those who run and those who do this, they'll know when you don't have that in your system, and you probably know this, and then you flood yourself with fructose, that can wreak havoc on your body, and it did. But I had preloaded a little bit too, and there was absolutely no benefit for me in that. I felt sick and bloated the entire time. So I think for somebody who uses carbohydrates as fuel, it makes more sense. But someone who is fat adapted, I just know that's not for me, and I'll never go back to that. And I've performed at so much higher levels without any of that I can't ever imagine. And here's something I'm going to say, and I hope all my trail running friends don't get mad, but when you do these races, and you could probably go to any race, 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, and look at runners. I've also always told friends and clients, running doesn't mean you're thin. It has nothing to do with your body type at all. I run because I love to run. I run trails because I love to see our country on my feet. It's a wonderful perspective. And I do like some competition. But when I look at just the overall physique, just like the doctors of the runners fueling themselves, I would say 5% of them look like an athlete. The most of the rest of them look pleasantly plump or skinny fat. And if you saw what was at the aid stations, you would know exactly why. Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew, sodas, everything you can possibly imagine. So just because you can do that with that fuel doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And it
I
doesn't
have
mean it's the
that.
best way.
I have that experience. I see runners and I see a lot of athletes out there who eat this way, and they don't look like athletes to me, right?
No, no. Like I said, 5% of them, if that, maybe 3% of them look like athletes to me. And actually, I hung out there. I camped at that last race with sort of the top athletes there, the ones who are really on the team.
Yeah.
And even them, and these are amazing athletes, so I'm not taking that from them. They're extraordinarily thin with no muscle mass on their body. And that's okay. That's just not what I want. You know, I'd like to have some muscle mass supporting my skeleton
Yeah, well, hey
for
guys,
longevity.
muscle is your proprioception, right? It's your way to kind of feel yourself around the world. If you trip, it's your muscle that's going to catch you before you actually fall. So the more muscle you have as you age, the better you will feel. It's anti-inflammatory. Like you should have muscle mass and you should have low body fat. That's how you're designed to feel. Look at the old Roman statues, Greek statues, muscle, low fat. Imagine if we were to put up a statue today of
Yeah, how
our
did they come up
leaders.
with that?
Yeah, imagine if we were able to put up a statue today of our leaders.
Oh my god.
It would
Oh
be
my goodness.
hilarious. In
I don't want to get
200
my
years from now, people would be looking back thinking, what the hell? Aliens wouldn't even come to our planet. If you believe in
right.
aliens.
I'm gonna say this again. I ruffle feathers. My my boys were when they were young. They were in Cub Scouts, and I ripped them out of there because I looked at their male role models and said, "These aren't the role models I want for my children." Every single male role model who was 13 to 45 was rotund and obese. And I'm not beating up on obese people. I'm just saying that wasn't the role model I wanted for my child. And like you said, with our leaders, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. And I don't think those Greek statues and all of the portraits of what we've seen in the past, I don't think they made up these muscular physiques. That's what was. Nobody was walking around with 300 extra pounds of belly fat.
Yeah.
It just didn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, guys, I think the reason why I wanted to have you on, Tina, is because I really want people to discern who they listen to, right? Because
Right.
even our industry, the health industry, there's a whole heap of garbage. There's a whole heap of noise that isn't correct. And I really want you guys to discern who you listen to. And again, I'm not beating up on practitioners who are unhealthy, but find somebody who walks the walk. Find somebody who you aspire to be like. When I started my jiu-jitsu journey, I wanted to find somebody who did compete because I also wanted to compete because they can tell me what it's like to be in the trenches, right? They can tell me what it's going to feel like right before I get on the mats or in the ring or in the cage. They can tell me what it's going to feel like afterwards. They can guide me through when I lose and when I win. This is the same with your practitioners. Find somebody who has been through it. Just because they have an education doesn't mean they are educated, right? Doesn't mean they have the experience. I have a science degree sitting on my bookshelf. I learned more because my university was an hour drive from where I live. And I would listen to Rob Wolf's podcast, The Paleo Solution, back then on the hour there and the hour back. And I think that alone was more of an education than what I learned in my science degree.
Right.
In terms
and
of
these
what
days,
I can put
whether
into
it's
practice.
degrees.
Yeah.
Correct. Degrees, certifications, all of the things, what does all of that mean? What does all of it mean if it doesn't? What matters is experience, like you said, put into your practice, and performance, and what are the end results? Are you well? Do you feel good? And are you able to live life to its fullest? That therein lies the answer. You could have every degree on your wall, and so many do.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that really gets you.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to wrap it up because I know you're probably hungry, but 2 questions.
My feet are frozen.
Yeah, 2 questions. Sure. What's for dinner?
Yes. What is for dinner? Hamburger. We're having hamburger tonight. Yeah.
Nice.
Probably my favorite go-to as far as red meat, because you get that luxurious fat in it. Last night we had skirt steak. I actually was glad you asked about food. I wanted to mention that. So everybody talks ribeyes, or at least a lot of us carnivores do, and I love them, but they can be expensive. My favorite substitute for ribeye is skirt steak. It's very inexpensive. It's delicious. I grill it whole and then I chop it up. And, you know, and I'll say this in regards to carnivore, I use salt, I use other seasonings, and I drink coffee. So I'm not, you know, I know you mentioned drinking coffee as well. I drink black coffee. I'll never give it up. I know some would argue that, but it is something that I love.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not giving it up either.
It's really a great way to go.
Nice. So
now,
hamburgers.
There are some things.
Yeah, there are some things I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
Coffee is not one of them.
Yeah. And I will say, I do eat some cheese. I've given it up in my life on and off. Cheese doesn't seem to bother me in any way, so I eat it. I don't look for it, you know. I don't. It's not like I'm like I'm going to eat a bunch of cheese, but if I eat out and have a burger and there's cheese on it, you know, as far as the burger patty, I'll eat it. I have no problem with that.
Nice. Awesome.
So I do a little dairy that way.
One more question, and we'll probably keep it short because your feet are freezing. By the way, there's a trick to that. You know, if you put your socks on and then you put plastic bag over the sock and then you put your boots and shoes on, your feet won't get wet. I learned that when I was living in Montreal and it was freezing cold. So
that is a good idea.
If somebody is watching this, or if 20-year-old Tina was watching this, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, listen to your instincts. Listen to how your body feels. Like, really pay attention and don't care what anyone else thinks. You know, do what you know is serving you and you're healing.
Amazing. I love that one. Don't care about what anyone else thinks. Epic.
I want to say don't give any fucks, but I don't know if that was allowed. I did.
Don't
Sorry.
give any fucks. That's hilarious.
Don't give any fucks.
Tina, thank you so much for showing up. Hey, I love hearing from you. It's always inspiring. You make me want to run. Nicole and I, my partner, were actually talking about doing some training for an ultra, and I think I'm going to put my running shoes on. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you very much, Marco. Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing like the real work and helping people. I appreciate it.
Glad to be a part of it. All right, I'm going to hit stop on the recording. Thanks, guys. See you next time.